You know, it's funny, I find myself when I start off these stories, the past couple videos, is me telling people, I just don't give a shit what you think. And I don't. And people say, why do you keep saying that? Why do you keep saying that? I think more of the question is for me, because I've got such a low tolerance for dumb. You know, like dumb people just drive me insane. I've been employing people for many years, and I'll tell you what, when you've been a babysitter of adults, you just start to grow an intolerance for dumb. And when in the beginning of anything online, any video, when it says specifically, nobody's here to prove anything to you, nobody gives a flying shit what you think. If you're not interested or curious in this topic, just carry on. You know what? And so aside from why do I keep saying that, how about this one? What kind of a brain, aside from me that keeps saying that, why do the idiots still persist in coming here and throwing cap locks on, attacking either me or whoever's commenting on here with caps lock and insults and belittling and rage and anger? You know, it's so freaking mind-boggling. Humans are absolutely amazing. You know, and once again, if you do not have a serious interest or curiosity for this topic, or if you haven't seen one and you're not interested and it makes you angry and frustrated and you feel compelled to hit caps lock and insult me with names or anybody else, I think the only piece of advice I would have for those people is possibly save up your money, definitely hire a lawyer, and definitely sue your biological uncle for becoming your biological father at the same time. That's probably all I have for you. That's all there is here for you, is that piece of advice, okay? Go sue the ass off your father, uncle, and stay off of Sasquatch videos, okay? Okay, onward. Anyway, all right, so I have another Sasquatch story for you guys, and but I want you to take note. You know, my inboxes on all my social media pages are getting flooded with people who are suggesting people for me to contact, different Sasquatch organizations or social media pages, and talk to them about this topic. And here's somebody's number, phone them or talk to them. And that's kind, I appreciate that. But just so you guys know, I'm not into it. You know what? Like I said before I started these videos off on my channel was, I really stressed that I'm just not into it. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I don't need to go sit in groups and talk about it, because this basically just keeps going in the same circle anyway. And like I said, I'm good. I'm good with this topic. For me, I'm good. I accept it. It's happened. I can't change it, and it's over here on the shelf. And I just take it for what it is. You know, somebody bumps into me somewhere and wants to talk about it, fine. But I just don't have the time to go out of my way to join groups and social media pages on this topic. It doesn't really make sense. I just don't have the time. I don't have the time for it. Sorry, I don't. I barely have time to do this. If you knew what I had on the go normally each day, you'd probably commit me to the insane loony bin for sure. But anyway, this is a very interesting story for me to share, because it was back when I was very interested in the topic, and it was back when I was intentionally looking for information on these things nonstop. I'd been in contact with John Bindernagel from Comox, and he told me he was going to be doing a thing at the University of Victoria and a talk on these things. And that was around 18 years ago, I think. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to that. So we went, and listened to him. It was very informative, very interesting. And there was definitely a handful of people there, and I believe the newspaper was there as well from Victoria. And afterwards, you know, people are kind of milling around talking to John and talking to each other. And I noticed these two ladies talking, the person with the newspaper. And I said, you know, the problem is, as I've said it, you know, dozens of times here, and I stated to these people, I said, well, the problem is you know, people being too scared, too insecure about sharing their stories. And when I said that, there's this man I noticed him earlier. He's a quiet guy. He came alone. He looked like he was about late 40s. And he had a notepad and a pencil, and he had a copy of John's book we just bought. And he's just standing there all quiet. And then I stopped talking, and then he said to me, yeah, I've got a story. We're like, no way. And then we called John over, and he shared a story with us. And this is interesting for me, because at the time, being a professional hunting guide, I was just really trying to rack my brain and the weakness of these things. What's their weakness? How am I going to find one? How am I going to see one intentionally? Maybe videotape it, whatever. And I took note that like with my grandfather's story and numerous other stories, I took note that it was very common for people to surprise encounter these things in creek beds and river beds. And so I was really curious about that. Because at the same time, I am and still am very well, my attitude's changed in these things. I can't explain anything about them now, but at the time I was thinking a little more simply. And I thought the only answer for them to be able to elude us so easily was the fact that they, obviously, their sixth sense, they are way more in tune with it than us. We all have it. But I figure these guys have got to be so in tune with their sixth sense. It's just like us and our eyesight, or our ears. It's just there. We use it every day. And it's part of us. And I think that might be the answer. At the time, I thought it's got to be the answer for these things. That's why I remember this man's story, because it really keyed in on what my feelings were with these things' possible weaknesses. So anyways, he said it was, I forget, at the time he said it was 10 or 15 years earlier, and it was near Cherry Creek, which is south of Kamloops, British Columbia. And he was hunting with a friend of his, and they're split up, and they're in the timber. And the layout of the land was a little confusing the way he described it to me, because he said he was in the timber looking downhill through a draw, and he said way down there in the draw, he just noticed something black go from one tree to the next, kind of a glimpse of something black moving through the timber. And he saw it again, and on the side of it, didn't know what it was, and he said all of a sudden, boom, there it was right in front of me, is what he said. And he said this thing, I'm like, well, how far away? And he said, oh, it's about 18 yards. I'm like, oh, wow, right in front of you. He's like, oh, yeah. And this man's demeanor was he was a very mild-mannered guy, very quiet guy, very matter-of-fact guy. You could tell by his delivery, the way he was talking, the way he was looking at us, he wasn't looking for attention. He definitely wasn't looking for attention. I mean, he went through that whole talk from Dr. John Benernagel. He never raised his hand once, never said a word. And he didn't say anything until I mentioned, you know, it's sad that people are too scared to talk about it. And that's what triggered him into speaking up quietly. He was only talking to me and John when we told the story. So he said that all of a sudden this thing's right in front of him, about 18 yards. Maybe 18 feet? 18 yards. 18 yards, I think. Either way, who cares? It was close. So he said it was looking at him, and the way he described his body kind of creeped me out, because he said it was just like going like this. He said it was like stooped over, swaying back and forth a little bit, looking at him. And he said he could tell by the expression on his face, it was kind of freaked out seeing him. He said the expression on his face was looking at him like it was like, holy crap, it's a human. You know, something towards that line. And he had a 30-06, I'll never forget. He had a scope 30-06, and he put his gun up, crapping himself. And he said he put the scope up on it and had it on his face the whole time. Had the safety off. But he said he couldn't pull the trigger because he was so human-like. He said it wasn't human, but it was very human-like and human-like enough that he didn't want to shoot this thing, so he just didn't know what they do. Obviously, they don't want to be a murder charge. Whatever the feeling is that overcomes people when they have their weapon drawn on these things, every single time this happens, every single person has said they don't pull the trigger because it's so human-like. So he's looking at this thing, and I'm like, okay, I said, whoa, hold on a minute. So you got a 30-06 with a scope on it, and you have it on that thing at 18 yards? I go, you could see the whites of its eyes. And he goes, oh man, I could see the wrinkles in its skin. He says, I can see it. He said, I can still see it right now like it happened yesterday. He said, I put that scope from one eyeball to his other eyeball, down to his mouth, and back up to his forehead. He got to see that thing's face crystal clear, broad daylight. So then, he said, all of a sudden, the thing jumped behind a tree and started looking out, just his face was looking out the tree at him like this. And not 10 seconds later, his buddy comes walking up. So, take note of what means the sixth sense. That tells me this thing could sense his buddy coming before his buddy came. Okay, so for me, that's why I think I remember this story, because I was really trying to put a lot of energy into figuring out, you know, it's got to be their sixth sense. And when I heard this guy tell the story, it somewhat confirmed for me these things' sixth sense. But I think this actually took it a little further for me, because he said that his buddy come up, saw him pointing his gun at this tree. His buddy saw the look on his face. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? He's like, look, check it out, check it out. And he said his buddy looked up and started shitting himself, going, holy shit, holy shit. And he put his gun up And when his friend put his gun up, he said the thing really hit. It really got behind the tree. I was just poking out and looking at it. And then his buddy put his gun down. Oh my God, what the hell is it? And he said when his friend's rifle went down and he had his gun up, then the thing stuck his whole face out and looked at them. And then his buddy'd bring his gun up and the thing would really hide. I'm like, he said it was almost like they were controlling it. Face out, face in. Face out, face in. Whoa, whoa, like that, you know, is the way he described this encounter. So I'm like, because I also was wondering at the time if these things are very in tune to the sixth sense. I was wondering, I was as well starting to wonder back then, can they pick up on our demeanor? Can they pick up on our personality? Can they sense what's really going on inside our heads at the time, you know? Can they really sense what's going into their thoughts? Possibly. I don't know. And I used to always think if they can, I must come across as a frickin' mass murderer because I've been a hunting guide for many, many years, and I've been hunting for many years. I don't know. It's just, you're speculating. You're wondering, you know? And I asked the guy, I go, what's your buddy's personality like? Like, is he a killer? Has he been hunting a lot? And he goes, oh, no, he's definitely more of a trigger-happy guy than I am, that's for sure. I'm like, bingo. So, you know, he got across to us that his friend's character personality was more on the trigger-happier kind of guy than he was. And by the actions of this thing behind the tree, really hiding, when his buddy brought the gun up, and then his buddy put the gun down, they'd stick its whole head out, even though the other guy's gun was up. That's pretty interesting to me. And that kind of says a lot in a way if you are inquisitive about what these things can pick up and what we're putting off. So anyway, after a while, I guess this seesaw action went on, hide and peek went on, he said, for a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden he said the thing just completely hid behind the tree, and then that was it. And then he said that all of a sudden he was absolutely full of anxiety, terror, and had a massive, massive urge for flight and to get the hell out of there. And they never saw it again, and they took off. His buddy was really shook up and tore off about it, and they left. But he did say that, I as well took note that in the very beginning he said, when they first looked at each other, and when he first seen it standing there, full on standing in front of him, he said that obviously it was scared the crap out of him, but then he said that all of a sudden he just felt a weird flooding of calm sensation. He said he just felt calm, like everything's cool, and he's safe, and nothing's threatening. That's a little odd. It's not a common thing to hear, I don't think. I don't know, but I always took note of that. I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty crazy. So possibly, maybe that thing got across to him, you know, I'm not going to kill you, and let him know. Somehow, if they are in tune to the sixth sense, if they are in tune and picking up what we're giving off or passing on what they're giving off, you never know. Who knows? I don't have the answers. I can't explain it. And I know nobody else can. And if they can, they know a lot more than we do, and they're not going to share it with us. There you go. So there's another story. Okay. So anyways, while you guys are here, if you know a fly fisherman, if anybody are a fly fisherman and you want a full-on fly fishing app with probably North America's best fly fisherman's knowledge damned in it, I'll put a link at the end of the video here that anybody can pick it up. And if you don't want to pick it up, at least tell a friend who's a fly angler to grab this thing. Because if you've been following any of my content or what I do normally, you can tell there's no BS, no sponsorship, no celebrity crap. It's all true, honest knowledge we're trying to deliver to everybody to help them, okay? And these Sasquatch stories that just come across by accident, I've been hounded by people on social media for a long time, asking me if I've ever seen one, can you please tell us? And I haven't had time. And I thought, okay, what the hell, I'll crack open a couple stories and share them here. And I can't believe the interest and the reaction that people are dropping on my Sasquatch stories that I've accumulated over the years. Is kind of overwhelming, but whatever you want to hear them, I'll share them with you. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not here to prove anything once again. But anyways, get back to the Stillwater Fly Fishing app. If you are a fly fisher or know somebody, you gotta make them aware of this thing. I think it was ranked top fly fishing app for 2018 next to Orvis's. Orvis won that #1 title only because of their brand for sure, because I've checked out their app, and it's definitely not as helpful as this one, okay? So that's another thing for all you people out there as well. You might think I'm on here to make money and that's it. If I was, I would be hammered and annihilated with nothing but sponsorships, and I'm not, because I waive all that, because I'm keeping true professional knowledge is what I have to deliver. That's all we're delivering, and with no bullshit. There you go.